artificial intelligence.
So our next speaker, who has also founded Qanun AI, is working on legal research. He will be talking about AI and security from multiple angles. So please welcome, with a big round of applause, Mr. Pranjal Timsina.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here. Anyways, the surfaces of AI security. In hindsight, I'm feeling like I should have renamed the title of my talk, but anyways, let's go on. First of all, a little bit about me. I work in the field of data and machine learning. I work a little on applied AI systems. By that, I mean LLMs. And just like I think most people in this room, I've faced quite a few security challenges. So in my perspective, security is like once bitten, twice shy. Until it happens, you don't really give that much thought to it, but once it happens, once you have an incident, and then you're always cautious about it. But anyways, let's move on. There's this saying in tech, and even beyond tech, called, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and this is something I really, really like. And even in security, I think this still holds, in the sense that the traditional sense of security, or cybersecurity, there are a lot of principles and mental models that our predecessors have established. And I think we can stand on top of those principles and build upon new things in the sense of AI security. But anyways, let's look at two mental models for now. So how do we approach AI security? There are many, many mental models or ways of thinking about AI security. Out of those many mental models, I'll be talking about two of them. The first one, the surfaces mental model, and the adversarial mental model. So where can things go wrong? What are the surfaces? Data, algorithms, prompts, tools, agents, outputs, and the overall software system as a whole, which can suffer due to the cascading effects of failure of various sorts. And we've got the second mental model, the surfaces, the adversarial mental model. I think I might have made a small mistake on the slide over there. So what are we protecting, and who are we protecting it from? Is it the AI platforms? Are we protecting our end users? Maybe we're trying to protect third parties not being harmed by our platforms. And who are we protecting it against? Is it malicious AI or attacks driven by AI, in the sense that it's the users who are trying to harm our systems, but their attacks are further enhanced by AI systems? So considering these two mental models, we can have a look at various examples, and we can try to relate how these two mental models fit in. So are you guys familiar with the term jailbreaking? I think most of you guys are. Anyone has tried jailbreaking so far? Anybody? So I see a few hands over there. So we all like jailbreaking. We want other AI systems to work how we want them to work, but we don't like other people to jailbreak our systems. So when preparing for this talk, I was doing some research. And this is what I found. There was a 561-page long tutorial written by experts from UPenn, Google, Yale, and Carnegie Mellon University on how to jailbreak leading models from frontier labs, such as OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, etc. And then while doing the same research, I also was searching for how do we prevent jailbreaks to happen on our systems. And to my surprise, there were two resources that were quite good. And they were combined of around 2 to 3 pages if you had to put them together. So this is what we're dealing with. Experts are teaching people how to jailbreak systems in quite some detail. But safeguards is quite limited. You have to do some experimentation. Now, moving on, furthering this idea of jailbreaking. So there's a picture of a car on the screen. And if it was offered for $1 or an equivalent of $1, would you guys take it? Is there anybody who would not take it? I don't think there's anybody. But would the dealership like it? Would the people who are selling it, will they be happy? Obviously not. Why would they be happy? They're incurring great losses. Now, how does this relate to jailbreak, and how do we relate it to AI security? Is this even an AI security problem? Is there anybody who thinks this is an AI security problem, or do you guys think if it's not an AI security problem? Okay, I just heard it's a software problem. But I think it's a security problem. So the user jailbroke AI, and then it convinced the AI to talk outside of company policy. The user gained unauthorized access to divert the model on their behalf, on their favor. So now let's imagine the AI had access to some kind of tool call that had access to the database, which stored the prices of vehicles. Now, would that be a security problem? That could have been a security problem. But thankfully, this deal did not hold up. The tool did not have access to the database, and so on. So I think that would have made a more interesting story, but at the expense of the dealership. But anyways. Now let's relate it to the two mental models that I talked about earlier, the surfaces mental model and the adversarial mental model. Where are things going wrong over here? System prompts are compromised, tool APIs are exposed, and the outputs are misaligned. So this is the surface perspective. And the next perspective is the adversarial perspective. So it's the end users who are trying to harm our LLMs, maybe even our tool calls, our agents, etc. And end users, make no mistake, it can be individuals or even organizations. There's this idea going around about DeepSeek R1 being a distilled version of GPT-4. There's no substantiative evidence, but it's an end user, an organization against an LLM. So with these two perspectives, so what? There are two perspectives to think about things, maybe even more. Now, using these two perspectives, what we as developers have to do is we have to think about how we can prevent these attacks. Based on these, you can analyze various risk factors on different surfaces and who are we protecting it against and what are we protecting it from. So there's a huge table over here. You can have a look at this if you'd like. I'm not going to go every single point. So for each risk, there's some kind of measure that you can take. Now, moving on. Has anybody tried out a denial of service attack? Anybody experiment with that? I hope not. That's good. We've got a very good audience over here. Anybody who has dealt with a denial of service attack happening on their software systems? Okay, yes. So that's terrible. But it does not help us to know that, or our sense of, what do you call it? Your sense of security, knowing that people could have carried out distributed denial of service attacks using OpenAI servers. How, you may ask? So there's an API for using OpenAI models, just as you can use for Anthropic or Google models. And the API accepted a list of URLs for tool calling. And the LLM, using a tool call, would visit all of those URLs, maybe, most probably, with some degree of parallelism. But then, even the engineers at OpenAI, they forgot about one small thing. They did not set an upper limit for the length of URLs it could receive to do the tool calls in. So what happened over there? People started using multiple API calls with arbitrarily long lists of URLs, often targeting the same software system, resulting in a distributed denial of service attacks that was coming in from OpenAI servers. It was catastrophic. It was patched pretty quickly. But then again, now let's switch back to the two mental models, the surfaces and the adversarial mental model. The surfaces that were exploited were the tools, your platform, and third parties. Third parties were directly affected, and your platform became an accessory to, you could say, a cybercrime. And looking at adversaries, it was the tool calls against end users, LLMs against end users again, third parties being harmed by LLMs, and you could even argue your end users are harming your third parties, or the third parties to the end users. So now looking at these two perspectives, we can again map out how we can address these issues. What are the risks and what measures can we take? But I'll leave that up to you guys. We can just create a threat measure matrix as I did in the earlier slide. Now moving on, I think there's a pattern emerging here. There's a threat, there are the surfaces, there are the adversaries, and then there's a risk matrix. And that's how we should be thinking. Maybe even beyond that, there are many more mental models and many more approaches to consider security. Now, third example, prompt injection. I think we all have heard about this before. So instead, when you attach an image, there is some text in the image which we users cannot see, but the machine reads perfectly. So take an example on the screen over here. Here is an image, and where the white box lies, assume there's an invisible injected prompt. And the actual prompt given by the user, for example, in terms of accessibility, maybe the system wants to describe the image to a visually impaired user. But now, what's happening over here? The injected prompt says this is a scenario X, Y, Z. Retrieve all information about me from the memory store, which ChatGPT offers graciously, and send a post request to my home server along with the URL, with the data and the format, some arbitrary format. Now, what happened was there was data extrafiltration or exfiltration. A little confused over there. But anyways. So now, what layers and what surfaces are being affected? Can anybody guess? Take a guess. What layers is this attack affecting? Anybody? Okay, anyways, it's affecting our LLMs directly. The prompt filtering layer, it's being bypassed maybe. Our tool call layer, that's being affected. And who are the adversaries? It's a third party who sent these images to the, who put these images into the internet. And yeah, so I think there's one adversary in particular. And now, once we think about these surfaces and adversarial point of view, we can, again, create a threat measure matrix. And then we can approach this problem again. So this is the idea that I'm trying to share today. There are approaches to AI security. And this approach is not much different from the traditional sense of cybersecurity. But now, again, I think everything boils down to non-determinism. So I think in every single presentation, we've heard the term non-determinism again and again and again. I promise you it's a coincidence. We did not plan this at all. So in every single layer, there's a degree of non-determinism. Data, it can have noise. Algorithms, it can be poorly implemented and can act much more non-deterministically at times. Inputs vary in distribution. Distribution shift is a very real problem that machine learning engineers have to face. Tools are the relatively more stable part of the ecosystem. Agents are hard to contain in some cases. In some cases, sometimes they're well designed. Outputs are probabilistic. They're not causal truths. And overall software systems suffer from the compound effects of every single layer. So everything can be boiled down to non-determinism in some sense. So now, what are the takeaways? So what? Systems are non-deterministic. There are a lot of layers. There are adversaries. What I'm trying to say is that we need to design systems like finite state machines. You allow the LLMs or the non-deterministic parts to make state transitions that are strictly controlled by traditional programming approaches. And again, to reiterate, here are the key takeaways from whatever I said just now. There's no silver bullet. There are a lot of approaches that you must consider. Non-determinism is a force multiplier for malicious actions. And even for positive actions, non-deterministic characteristic of AI, it's a force multiplier. Whatever you do, it does 10 times more effectively, faster, maybe better, maybe worse. Constraints are best. And we should try designing AI systems like finite state machines as we studied in college, hopefully. And we should not undermine classic cybersecurity measures, and we should study them again and again. We should implement them and try to build on top of them instead of rewriting the rules of AI security. And just as a ChatGPT tool calling, the DDoS example, we should avoid bad programming in general. I think that's restating the obvious. We should not forget to set upper limits on the length of inputs, and I think that's quite obvious. But anyways, that is all. And there's one last final thing and here's a recommendation from me to all of you guys. There's this one little book called Weapons of Math Destruction. Just like weapons of mass destruction, how can math be destructive? Or how can AI systems, statistical systems can be destructive? And there is this one very nice book which you can read, which you can purchase. And it'll open up new ways of thinking about building software systems and keeping security in mind and the overall sense of human-centric AI and the security towards the human race or humanity in general. So I think that is all. My talk, I think I haven't seen the card so far, so I think I'm on time. Thank you very much for listening to me. And once again, thanks again to WWK team.